Alright, we are back. Caleb's Route, Chapter 7, Asteri. My first day of training with Caleb again was when I learned what his idea of less than pleasant was, after which I had my suspicions he might secretly be a complete dolt or a sadist. At the very least, their definitions of unpleasant and less unpleasant were vastly different. Think she'll win this time? I'm more concerned with how they're considering this training. I bet they wanted an excuse to stare into each other's eyes longingly. The only thing I'm longing for is the two of you to shut the hell up. You look like you're struggling a little there, Kale. Of course he's struggling. I already let him win 2 matches. Ugh, damn it, he almost got me just then. I was not letting him win this round. It's almost cute you think you'll win this one. Oh, he called her cute. Shut up, Van. You can do it, Nori. I wasn't sure how I felt about having cheerleaders for this bizarre match, but I was at least glad more people were rooting for me than Caleb. Ari, I'm surprised you're letting them get away with this. Though I have my doubts, I can acknowledge it as a training if she has to enhance her strength to best him. Well, he wasn't wrong. It was certainly a novel form of training. Sprung from our previous conversation and my annoyance at Caleb winning another sparring match this morning, this was, as he put it, a contest of strength and grit, well, biokinetically enhanced strength anyway. But given the moves he had already pulled on me in the 2 prior matches, I knew that wasn't all there was to it. So what do I get when I win 3 out of 3? I threw myself into trying to get his arm down, glaring at him across the makeshift table. I wasn't aware we were betting anything. Afraid you'll lose? I'm not going to lose. Keeping my focus on enhancing my strength was difficult, but if I slipped at all, he'd beat me in an instant. I closed my eyes, shutting out the voices of the others and shutting out Caleb's stupid smirking face. Instead, I focused on the PSI energy winding down my arm, fortifying the muscles from the inside. There was no way I'd be able to beat Caleb normally, but with PSI, my elbow slipped on the mat as Caleb tried to pull my hand closer to his. I resisted, my eyes flashing open as I glared at him. His PSI was not only wound into his arm, but almost heavily in his wrist and his shoulders. Clenching my jaw, I followed suit, ramping up the enhancement in those areas. When Caleb tried to turn his palm inward, using the move that got me last time, I resisted it and pulled his hand closer to the mat. He grimaced, pushing back with enough force I almost gave up. Instead, I poured everything I had into one last boost. And finally, a surge of satisfaction rippled through me when I slammed the back of his hand against the mat. I released Caleb's hand, shooting him a grin as the rookies that had gathered around erupted in cheers. My arm will hurt like hell tomorrow. I half expected Caleb to glare at me or say something rude, but he returned the grin as he rotated his wrist. Not bad. Not bad. I just beat you. I beat you twice first. Hey, I'm a beginner. Oh? Want a medal because you beat me once? Do I have to toss you on your rear end to get some praise? He snickered. You think you can toss me on my rear? That you can't is half the reason we're doing this, right? I'm about to try again, damn it. Come at me anytime, little queen. I look forward to it. Is it just me or is he flirting? I whip my head around, glaring at her. He does seem to be enjoying her threats more than usual. Ugh, these two. I believe it's time to shift focus for a while, but perhaps a quick break is in order first. I nodded to Birdie and Casey as they passed by on their way out. Now that the excitement was over, Van was shooting everyone else out the room. Odette shot me a bruised smile before she headed out. I'll see you later, Nori. Bye, Odette. Ari watched me stretch my arms before rolling my shoulder a few times. I'd like to start with working on your shields again today. Unfortunately, I doubt you'll be challenged to many arm wrestling matches out in the field. You making some kind of commentary about my training methods? I believe I was making a comment about the realistic challenges of field work. Depends on the field work. When was the last time you encountered an arm wrestling fanatic in the field, perhaps in the mission to which I wasn't assigned? We're always assigned to the same missions, Ari. Precisely. In Caleb's defense, there's a lot about training that doesn't always apply to fieldwork, I think. Unless people usually pull their punches or let their opponent fall gracefully to the cushioned floor. A fair point. Training is, he cut off at the same time as a message nose popped up in my peripheral. A quick glance towards him and Caleb told me they got the same one. I pulled it up to see an urgent briefing request. It was addressed to the entire guard, but there was no subject listed. It would appear we must postpone this lesson, Nori. Something's up. Let's go. There wasn't even time to shower. Ari and Caleb left the training room at a jog, with me just behind them. We caught up to Van and Odette and the others on the way. When we arrived to Magnus's office, he wasn't alone. A woman I had never seen before, but who had an oddly familiar face, was with him. We knocked, but I was a little cautious about going in when it felt like we were interrupting. Caleb, who was right behind me, also stopped when he saw who else was in the office. Don't tell me this is why you interrupted our training. I glanced back at him, surprised by the acid in his voice. The woman, to her credit, seemed unaffected by his tone. No, this isn't the reason. Charisse was, in fact, just leaving. Then why is she still here? Is it strange for me to come visit my son, Caleb? Her son. Come to think of it, their appearance was similar. But why was Caleb so rude? And even Magnus didn't seem like he'd just been talking to his mother. He also called her by her first name. She was unfazed as she turned to me. A gentle smile graced her face. As a council member, I also don't need a reason to want to meet our new queen rank. Magnus's mother was a council member, the council Caleb hated. That explains his attitude. You must be Nori Adonis. I'm Charisse Ulrich. It's nice to meet you. Likewise, I apologize for not coming to see you sooner. As expected, your guard has already become quite protective of you. That's alright. It's been busy since I joined. I didn't want to air all of Caleb's grievances with the council right now. Not when we were here for a different reason. I can imagine there's been a little time to catch your breath these last few weeks. There was quite a push to get you trained as quickly as possible, a push by your council. It isn't my council, and despite my years on it, I'm not the ranking member either, though you're already aware of that. Magnus has told me a great deal about you, Nori, about your training, your studies before joining in the organization. Though some of us believe it's a little too early to invoke you in an assignment, I hope your prior knowledge proves useful to you during this investigation. I'll leave you all to your meeting. It was nice meeting you, Nori. I hope we have more time to sit and chat for a while. I'd love to hear your impressions of Endgame as a newcomer. Of course, there are definitely some thoughts I'd like to share. Her smile widened slightly before she excused herself and left us there with an awkward silence in her wake. For a moment, it felt almost like an unmasked questions were tangible in the silence as others made their way inside. Then Magnus smiled his usual smile and leaned against his desk, flipping a stylus between his fingers like usual. The smile, however, seemed a little strained for him. Well, that's over with. Why don't we get started? Where did I put it? He rummaged on the desk for a moment, checking the drawer at the top under it. He straightened and looked around as if lost in his own office. Everyone just took their seats and waited. Ah, here it is. He picked up a display from the shelf behind his desk. I don't know when I set it there. Anyway, I'm afraid there are some disturbing fresh developments to the Aryan relic situation. We hit on some leads and the council has decided it's time for the leads to take over. Before we get started though, Caleb, I need a status update on Nora's progress. Do you expect she's improved that much since the last update? Yes, actually. You've seen the growth curve of her PSI manipulation since the very start of her training. She's improving much faster than the children in the academy, as you well know. Much faster than anyone before. I was? Somehow I didn't feel like it. I mean, Caleb had said I was making good progress, but I still had such a long way to go. Faster than normal progress doesn't mean she's ready for an assignment. That wasn't what I asked you. I wanted to know her general status. Have you observed any irregular... No, Magnus, you know this, even after the incident the other day? You'd be aware of that if I had. As would I. Irregularities? You may not be aware, but F-class espers sometimes exhibit instabilities in their PSI. It's something we've observed in the past. He glanced at Ari. Given the PSI burst from your initial power surge and the way your abilities spiraled out of control while unconscious, we had concerns about you. You experienced a stressful situation a few days ago. I thought it would show any instabilities. It would be now. We haven't observed anything unusual, but that doesn't mean Nori is ready for an assignment of this magnitude. I don't disagree, but you heard Charisse, the council has decided. Why the sudden push? There is a new report from the Morai. The atmosphere tensed as soon as he said that, and I gathered this wasn't a good thing. They said something's coming, something big. Something? That's vague, even for Morai. It is. They are struggling to see the future clearly right now. What? I don't understand what's going on. I gathered it was bad, just from the looks of everyone was giving each other, but I didn't know enough about the Morai or their abilities yet. Not being able to see the future for the Morai, they can usually see at least some possibilities. When everything goes dark, it isn't a good sign. The usual struggle for the Morai is that they see so much of the future, it's difficult to home in on specific situations. Rarely is it an issue of not being able to see enough. It's only happened a few times before, often before a major catastrophe. It's out of my hands, Caleb, unless you're willing to mount an insurrection over the matter this afternoon. Entertaining as that would be, I fear there are more important things to deal with right now. Sending her out with the amount of training she's had is dangerous. If this situation continues unchecked, it will be dangerous either way, Caleb. No, it really already is. The two of you were out for an afternoon stroll and became involved in the attack. We're now aware of what we believe are multiple shipments of relics coming into the day side of the planet from Delphine, and a suspicious incident in Asteroid where a relic was involved. The situation is worsening. We cannot afford to hold back right now, and I'm sorry, we can't afford for something to happen to her. Then you'll have to do your job well and keep her safe, because you'll be breaking into sub-teams, and I decided to pair the two of you. You're most familiar with Nori's PSI abilities, so it makes sense to partner the two of you. You'll be leaving immediately to retrieve the relic in Asteroid and grasp the situation there. It is at least a difficult situation, as Utpol are already at the scene. You won't encounter anything dangerous there. Living right away? Correct, and as much as I would like to explain everything, I've been called to the council room for a public statement. You'll all be receiving your mission briefing soon. I'll be monitoring your teams from the tower. Dismissed, and Nori, good luck. I answered faintly as I sat there bewildered. It was at once overwhelming. I guess that's it. Don't worry. Maggie said he's sending you out for something easy. You'll be fine. I concur. If it's merely retrieval from an already contained situation, you have nothing to worry about. Do I look worried? Just a little. You look bloody terrified. It'll be fine, Nori. Caleb will take good care of you. He better. I don't need you to tell me that. Come on, everyone. If you keep treating her like she's fragile, she's going to start believing it. Nori, it's true you lack training, but you are a queen rank. Don't forget that either. Do you think something like that matters, Odette? I think the four of you have developed a tendency to baby her, and it's important for her to maintain some perspective. Aluva said, you are all to leave immediately. I let out a breath. He's right, I appreciate all the concern, but I'll be fine. After the meeting, Caleb gave me a gruff command to get into the uniform. He said he'd be at my room in 20 minutes to get me. With all the prior warning I had, I wasn't too shocked at being deployed. We all knew that if the relic situation continued, I'd be sent out. That didn't do much to stop my heart from trying to leap out of my chest at the very thought of going out in any sort of official capacity. But it had to have happened, didn't it? It had to have happened sometime, didn't it? Just fumbling and jumbling over my words, aren't I? And everything I've heard so far indicated that the council wouldn't hide me away and let me ease into things. As I pulled my hair up into a ponytail to keep it out of my face, I looked over myself in the mirror. My first time wearing the uniform I'd been issued when I first arrived. Well, this is it, isn't it? I'm officially screwed. I let out a dry chuckle as the door chimed. Right on time. I went to let him in, picking up my jack on the way to the door. He didn't look happy. Is it time to leave now? Then break in this time with a surprise. Oh, you waited for me to answer this time instead of breaking in. What a surprise. Was my new passport that good? My password that good? If the glib greeting annoyed him, he didn't show it. There isn't time for me to break in, or I would have, just to prove I can. He looked me over, eyes traveling up and down my form. Couldn't tell if he was approving or judging. Doesn't look half bad on you. Thanks, I think. I expected you to be nervous. Oh, I am. But I'm also used to dealing with things that make me nervous, so I'm just trying to focus on what needs to be done. Listen, I don't expect anything bad to happen. Was there time to look over the mission briefing? Just a quick glance. It really is a simple assignment. You and I will oversee the cleanup of the incident that happened earlier this morning. The culprit is nowhere to be seen. The relic has already been recovered. We're to retrieve it and bring it back to the tower. It's not like it would be anything you're not capable of. That's good to know. I'm the team lead, so all you need to do is whatever I tell you. Somehow that annoys me. He smirked. Ranks aside, I still have some seniority. There's nothing that can inspire me to work hard as much as the thought of getting to eventually boss you around. Keep dreaming. Doesn't matter how hard you work, I'll always have seniority. I don't think that's fair. We started out of my room and down the hall, but Caleb grabbed my arm, looking down at me seriously. I'm glad to see you in good spirits, but listen. Just don't do anything stupid out there this time. I'll curb my need. Oh fuck, sorry guys. I'll curb my need to poke things with a stick, save people, or throw myself into harm's way. Especially the last one, please. And so I left for my first assignment out in the field, a bundle of 1,000 emotions, fear, apprehension, and a surprising drop of excitement lurking under everything else, and a strange sense of relief that it was Caleb who was going with me. He might have been babying me, as Odette called it, but maybe it wasn't bad being babied on my first real assignment. There would be plenty of time to spread my wings later on. And I didn't mind a little metaphoric hand-holding for the first time. So for now, I'd stick close and do what he said, and hope it turned out to be as easy as I said. I had never been to this part of the day territories. There wasn't much to see through the tubes. Most of the way it was fully enclosed, and through the rest there were just endless dunes. And the Trinity Desert, I'd seen it before, a vast wasteland of sand and sun. It occurred to me that the last time I'd been in the car with Caleb was the day he and Ari kidnapped me, arrested me. Despite everything, thinking back to that was almost funny. So much panic and shouting. Wonder how much of that could have been solved by just them saying they were within game. I could never have imagined we'd be going on this assignment together a month and a half later. Esteri is so different from any dome I've ever been to before. A lot of the more isolated cities are unique, and I'm sure you'll learn that on your way, on your own without me telling you. I suppose so. Agents must do a lot of traveling. Not all of them, but the guard, yes. Have you been to Esteri before? A few times. What's it like? I know it's I don't know what that word is. It's 7 domes. 9. 2 are tiny and largely uninhibited. I see. It's also agricultural, from what I understand, but that's about the extent of my knowledge. Probably because they just stay out of global politics and maintain a neutral stance on just about everything. And they don't deal with much of the triad. Their energy needs are low, and even with a single solar array of their own, they're self-sufficient. If they're agricultural state, the bioflora must mean their energy needs are low. Oh, are bioregenerative's life support system something else you studied, or is it something you learned from your father? Mostly from my father. That's the sort of planning he does. Well, you're not wrong. Their energy needs for most life support, the environmental functions are lower than normal because of the self-sustained ecosystem. So they get by on their own because it's isolated. People who come here usually do it because they want to be left alone, and it's pretty peaceful. There's a stable trade agreement with Delphine and the 2 other city-states on the night side, and because of the proximity of the triad northern solar arrays, there's an agreement in place with them as well. Agricultural trade, I take it? That's about the only thing they have to offer, and the night side is the perfect place to offload their surplus supplies, though they allegedly trade with the Nomos do. The Nomos? I thought no one traded with them. Not quite true. Some of the isolated cities, like this one do, were close enough to the waste it makes sense for the Nomos to pop by every so often. That's so fascinating. I never imagined a place like this existed. Easy to get distracted by all the big cities on the day side, isn't it? That could be it. I think it's more to do with New Albion forces you to focus on the path ahead so much that it's different to see anything else. Everyone is so driven to constantly prove your worth, everything else fades to the edges. Seems like it would be easy to lose yourself in all that. The more time I spend out of that system, the more I realize that. So, where are we heading within Esteri? We'll be passing through the center city and into one of the territory dorms of the I don't know what the fuck that word said, I'm sorry. May surprise you to learn they're not actually uninhibited. Girl, surprise, surprise. Aside from the central dome, there aren't any major cities in the conglomerate. The secondary domes are all small settlements with large expanses of agricultural development. The domes, these are remnants of cities and towns, but the communities are disorganized and there's little oversight in them. Remember when I said people come here to be forgotten? The territory domes are the perfect place for it. The city governance has neither the money, staff, nor will to maintain and govern these areas, but mostly it's unnecessary. A lot of the citizens out here are refugees just trying to live, but anywhere there isn't close governance becomes a haven for illicit affairs. Esteri itself is peaceful, but that doesn't mean it's not a good place to smuggle in just about anything from Delphine, especially with the trade agreement. As long as they're smart about it, they don't get caught because the government here doesn't care unless they have problems. It's a waypoint, a place where goods can pass through before distributed to other locations. If you know Esteri had that function, why doesn't Endgame keep a close watch on it? We do, Nori. There are multiple agents stationed here full-time, all undercover just watching, my stomach sank. Were any of them involved in this incident we're checking out? He was silent, but that was enough of an answer, wasn't it? Damn. I still don't fully know what to expect when we arrived where we were going. We pulled up to something that appeared to be an abandoned warehouse or storage compound. Disrepair was an understatement. There were a lot more people than I expected. Multiple vehicles outside, investigators carrying cases and containers in and out. like an actual crime scene. So there are places like this on the day side too. I remembered the words to myself as we entered. Caleb shot me a sidelong look. Of course there are, all over in fact. Don't think everything over here looks like Solosis or Brazil. I didn't think that. I just didn't imagine places like this. He stopped me and leaned down as two people across the room saw us and waved us over. You don't have to do anything in particular. I'll take care of everything, but keep your sphere expanded and pay attention. The investigators only see what's in front of them, or what appears on their scans. You can see a lot more than that if you try. He shot me a slight grin. And relax, nothing and no one here will hurt you. Yeah, our last date didn't exactly go well, if you recall. Date? I'm almost insulted you'd think I'd bring you to a shitty joint like this on a date. We found another one. Set up a barrier, make sure no one disturbs the area until I get over there. Surprisingly familiar figure stepped out of the adjacent corridor back into the main room where Caleb and I were. Ruben Kellner? I spoke loud enough that he looked our way, and I immediately regretted near shouting his name. His brow furrowed before his surprised recognition spread. You know him? We met the day you and I recruited me. He was investigating something that happened the previous day. That fountain thing, I was surprised for only a split second. I guess it should have been obvious you knew about that. Probably. Anyway, yeah, he was investigating the man, the one who was standing in the fountain. Ruben was waiting for me outside of my apartment the next morning. Charming, says the kidnapper. Still, what is he doing here? We're far from Triad. Ruben kept looking my way as he spoke to another person I assumed was from his team. Pole sometimes handles cases out this far because no one else can, besides Endgame. They just got here faster this time. Why are they still here if Endgame has taken over the investigation? We are taking over, I assume. Still a joint effort for now. We don't like to take over unless we have to, but didn't you say some of our people, they don't know that, and we don't want them to. Ah, gotcha. The moment we take over, everyone realizes how serious all this is. Besides, these guys get cranky if we take over. Oh no, having to deal with cranky people? No one at Endgame has any experience with that. He gave me a scathing look, but I saw that half smirk. Come on. He looks like he might be in charge here. Let's go get an update on the situation. Come on. He looks like he might be in charge here. Let's go get an update on the situation. Alright. I had a feeling a lot of questions were in store for me now. This one is just like the others. Tell Winter to get the scanning team in here and verify it, but I think we'll find the casualty list is up to 10. Might have wiped out everyone staying in the area. Casualties. There wasn't a body anywhere though. He handed off a tablet to the person next to him, a deep frown crossing his face. Is there a report on those components in the other room yet? Not yet. I'll let you know as soon as the scan results are in. Got it. He turned to us with a heavy sigh. His eyes lingered on my face, as if searching for any reason I might be standing in front of him in this uniform. I expected Endgame to be showing up sometime soon, but I don't think anything would have prepared me for this. What are you doing here, Miss Adonis? She's working, as am I. He held out a hand. Caleb Zane. First guard, Queen's Rook. Ruben shook his hand cautiously, casting a look over his shoulder when his partner joined us. Ruben Kellner. At Pole Special Investigations. This is Winter Ashton. He looked my way again. I didn't catch your rank and position. I caught the curious lift of an eyebrow. He was just finishing the information on what I was doing here. That, I suppose, I could understand. First guard, Queen. I suppose this is where I ask how you went from being a student waiting on exam results to Endgame's Queen in such a short amount of time. We had heard a new Queen rank was located, but I never imagined it was you. Same, not until after I got shot at a few times and subsequently rescued. I suspected if I mentioned the arrest, Ruben would be at least a little indignant, so I refrained. Well, I was wondering what happened to you. I feared the worst when you vanished. You didn't show up to our meeting that afternoon. When I tried to reach out to you, you were already gone. There were some sudden developments. There wasn't time to take care of things or notify anyone. Anything to do with that man at the fountain by any chance? Can't say it wasn't related to him. Can't say it was either. I see. We caught his trail again, but he was heading into Delphine. There wasn't much we could do about that, so we had to let him go. He got out of the vivarium safely. I was glad. There were bigger things at play than just that, unfortunately. That's why I thought after I looked into it more, your family disappeared, your records were tampered with. I guess it makes sense now. He stared Caleb a glare, then sighed as if he knew nothing would come of arguing about it. Are you alright? A queen rank? I wouldn't have guessed that. Of course she's alright. She's standing right in front of you, isn't she? What do you think we might have done to her? You might recruit her against her will. I can't imagine a university student in the middle of exams would up and join Endgame. Didn't know you were a queen and you were hiding it. Either way, Endgame wouldn't have been a career path you chose on your own. You don't... I did choose this, more or less. You're wrong. I did choose this. We're gonna say you're wrong. You're not wrong, Adonis. He's not, but that isn't the point. I'm sure you realize many people in the game didn't choose to be there. It's one of the duties and responsibilities of the organization to keep any Esper off the streets if they can be a danger to others. Do you really believe that? It's not about what I believe, it's part of why they exist. You should know firsthand the problems that occur with unregistered Espers. If Endgame hadn't gotten to me, it's unclear what might have happened, Ruben. And now that we know I'm queen rank, can you imagine the scenario in which I'd been able to do anything but what I'm doing? You're saying you're okay with being pulled off the street. I'm saying that. I shot Caleb a quick look. His expression was dark, but he set a hesitant hand on the back of my shoulder. Perhaps an attempt to comfort, or maybe just let me know he would back me up on this. I'm saying that I think about the options were limited, and it's pointless to question it. I'm here now, and there's a job to do. I believe you said something about casualties more than we initially thought. I would have been relieved if we were moving on from the topic, if we weren't moving on to the casualties. I'm sorry, you're right. We weren't planning to see you here. We thought we might never really find out what happened. When we realized the data and your public records didn't match what had been there the day before, come on with your supposed travel plans, that didn't make sense with your situation. Travel plans, huh? I realized you must have gotten mixed up in something significant, and I can understand that must have been worrying, especially with me being involved in an open investigation. We were less worried about the investigation than we were about you as a person, but you're right. That's not why we're all here today, and yes, there are more casualties than we expected. Ruben's expression had gone grim. Unfortunately, we found no survivors. We know that there was a small community living in this compound. There was a relic involved. We understand it's in your possession. We've got it. It was inactive by the time we arrived. Speaking of that, Ruben, we got the results of the earlier scan. As we suspected, due to the saturation of the area radiation, we can't tell if there were any biosynth components destroyed or not beyond the cybernetics were already found, which means the casualty list could be higher than we are aware of right now. I thought biosynths weren't allowed out of Erebos. It's more accurate to say that they aren't allowed to enter many domes. It was impossible to get them all to Erebos in the first place. And since Endgame refuses to police, we don't have a problem with neo-humans or augments. It was everyone else that decided any sort of complex AI was a problem. You make idiotic laws, you get to enforce them yourselves. As I said, since Endgame refuses to police the area, there's not much to stop them if they leave the Erisea. They find ways through it, and sometimes they end up in places like this. When they do, smaller city-states like Astrai allow them in. They can't hold citizenship often because of the international treaties, but they come an integral part of the economy. They make up for the bulk of the civilians who live out here, though they're not the only ones. But when there's a population of people you don't acknowledge exist, you also can't regulate them. We don't know how many people lived here or who they were. We're looking into it, but as best we can tell, it was at least 24 that lived in this particular subsector. Where are they? Well, that's the question, isn't it? We found what looked like weapon blasts when we got here. We thought it was some kind of energy weapon, which, as you know, are legal everywhere. But at first, we didn't find any bodies. We did find traces of Amedrium. The alloy relics are made from. We aren't sure what happened yet, but we know there were victims in this building, several human. One had cybernetic components. It makes sense to think that they could have been biosynths involved, but we can't find any traces of them. And the area radiation is messing with your scans. That's about the gist of it. You said you didn't find bodies at first, but have you now? Winter and Ruben shared a quick look, and Ruben's frown deepened. Well, it's hard to call them bodies. There's not much left of the victims. What does that mean? I had seen corpses before, but they were old, desiccated. I'd never seen anything fresh, much less something in pieces or whatever horrible thing happened to these people. We found several areas with unidentified substance, which later realized was an organic compound with human DNA in it, a substance. As best as we can tell, their bodies were liquefied. We found some trace cybernetic components that were melted as well. He shoved his hands in his pockets and started away from us, tipping his head to indicate we should follow. I trailed slightly behind the others. Winter was explaining something Caleb surely already knew. The places like this one could become centers for illegal activity due to lack of governance, but it was almost always smaller smuggling rings. It can get much worse than that if Crimson, Nor, or anyone else can get their claws in. And I don't know who else could be dealing in something like this relics. I'm not sure this is the activity we'd be seeing if Crimson or Nora got their hands on a large stash of relics. Sending them out through small dealers like this to sell individuals, it doesn't make sense. Someone other than the usual culprits, huh? And the poor people in this place somehow got caught up in it all? Our agents as well, from what Caleb indicated earlier. Were they living here undercover? I couldn't help but wonder who they were, if they had families, how they died. Were they not keeping the damn thing? We're not keeping a damn thing. We're not keeping any of them. I told you to get those things out of here once and for all, Ash. I turned at the unexpected voice behind me. The anger was almost as surprising as what they were saying. But as I scanned the room, I couldn't figure out who was speaking. There was one team of investigators near a cornered off area at the far side of the room, and another a little closer. Everyone was bent over on the ground, noting things on little pads. No one was angry or speaking loudly. One of my ears went quiet, and all the noises replaced by a loud ringing. I placed a hand on the side of my head, trying to shake away the unpleasant sound. Nori? Sorry, my ears started. No one will notice if it's just a few of them. He'll notice. His eyes are everywhere. This is why I told you not to get involved with him. We'll get them to contact the New Albion and be done with it. This is too big for us. We're not going to get involved more than this. Caleb's image blurred as voices flooded my mind. A harsh barking, laugh, an argument of merged shouting voices whose words were difficult to make out. It wasn't real. None of this was real. It was like a vision at the cafe, but more powerful. But I didn't think I was seeing something that hadn't happened yet. Rather, something that already happened. My legs buckled as Caleb's face vanished, replacing with several silhouettes I couldn't quite focus on. The voices were strange, metallic, and echoey, as if I was listening to them from the end of the long tunnel. Just put it down. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't. He trod off into an unintelligible garble. Two of the silhouettes were fighting, grappling over something as I shouted. A third near them, trying to stop the fight. There was a scream, a flash of cyan light, and stern symbols. For a moment, everything was crystallized in the image of the scene, freezing into my mind with perfect clarity. An image I wish I could erase from my mind. As the energy spread from the relic they'd accidentally set off, it destroyed everyone. Someone was crying at the back of my mind. I was aware it was me. Darkness swallowed the image and light faded back in. I let out a choked and strangled sob as I became aware of everything again. Nori, come on, come back. It's alright, you're not there, you're not with them. I was on the ground, fingernails digging into my knees. Caleb had an arm around me, speaking next to my ear. His voice was a gentle reminder I was back. I sucked in air as if I'd just been saved from drowning. It's alright, you're alright, just breathe. And the rest of you, if you have time to stare, then finish your investigation. I swallowed hard, willing myself to push away from him and straighten, still taking shaky breaths. The ringing in my ears was fading and everything was feeling more real again. Caleb didn't release me. He tipped my chin up towards him, dark eyes searching my face. His expression was more overtly concerned than I'd ever seen. You okay? I think so. You don't look okay. What was that? Psychometric event, as far as I can tell. He helped me to my feet, still keeping an arm around my shoulders. Excuse us, I think she needs some air before we debrief her on what that was about. Psychometrists are sensitive to places that have seen tragedy. That one hit hard. He said it as if it happened before, but I think it was just to quell their questions, to get me out of there. I let him steer me away from them and out of the building, not even seeing where we were going. It was when we entered a nearby building to get away from everyone outside that I finally let out a shuddering breath and bent over, resting my hands on my knees. Nausea swarmed into my stomach, but I swallowed against it and tried to just breathe. The images from what Caleb dubbed a psychometric event felt more like a dream, contrasted against reality now. That was a relief. I took another deep breath and let it out as I counted to 10. Come on, sit down. There's no one around to gawk at you. He led me to an old beat-up crate where he had me sit. Then he crouched in front of me, reaching to brush a hair out of my eyes. I've seen Van get smacked in the face with one of those before, but that one looked pretty bad. I'm pretty shit with that stuff, but I've heard they're worse if you're not prepared for it. It definitely wasn't my favorite experience. Your hands are freezing. He continued to rub them as he moved to sit on another crate next to me. After a space, he pulled me against him, just too surprised to do anything but blink against the fabric of his jacket. I let myself sink into him, The shaking started the moment I relaxed. Caleb wrapped both arms around me, cursing under his breath. Sorry. I'm the one who told you to keep your eyes open for something like that. I wasn't thinking. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. I pulled away, trying to get the shaking under control so he wouldn't worry. Caleb reached for me again, taking my face gently in his hands. My eyes went wide as he leaned closer in, and somehow my heart leapt down my throat. Your pupils are dilated. A sharp laugh escaped, and I mentally set myself for expecting whatever the heck had flashed through my mind just then. Is that a common side effect of psychometric events? Probably. Like I said, I don't know much about it. Oh, there's something you actually don't know. He flicked my forehead with a scowl. If you can be a pain in the ass again, I guess you're okay. I am. It's not, I mean, for the most part, it's not that what I saw was horrible, except the part where everyone melted. It was just unexpected and overwhelming. He let out a soft groan. If I had known that's what happened there, I never would have let you in that damn building. Can't protect me from everything. I can try. It's my job. He stood up, that familiar dark look on his face. You can go sit in the car. I'll handle the rest of it by myself. Are you kidding me? No. Now get in the car. No, I came here to help. That's an order, Adonis. And what are you going to do if I refuse? Drag me to the car, kicking and screaming? He grabbed my shoulders as I tried to push past him. Why are you like this? Why are you always like this? I'm trying to do you a favor. I don't want it. You can never listen to me, no matter how much I try to protect you. His voice dropped to a near murmur. Why don't you even listen? For a moment, we just looked at each other, the warm light filtered from the windows catching along the curve of his cheek. He leaned closer, breaths coming in soft exhalations. Exhalations. Is that how you say that? When his head tipped to the side, I started to realize what he was doing. And more startled, I didn't push away. But he drew in a sharp breath and moved away from me with an abruptness that left me feeling both foolish and rejected. A split second later, I realized that there were voices nearby. Caleb probably heard them before I did. He dragged his hand through his hair with enough force I was surprised he didn't pull half of it out. I must be out of my mind. Same, Caleb, same. They're in here, Reuben. There you are. We haven't yet secured everything in here. Please don't just wander about. Considering you're well aware Endgame will be taking over this case and this crime scene, I'm sure you understand we can go where the hell we want. I rubbed my forehead, trying to will away the headache I felt coming on. Not from the vision or whatever. No, this headache was purely just Caleb being himself. Okay, but he did almost kiss me just now, right? Wait, no, I shouldn't be thinking about that right now. We're supposed to be working. He started it. I cast a sidelong look at where he and Reuben looked to be about 2 seconds from descending into an argument. You're right, Mr. Adonis. I'm fine. Those kinds of things just take me by surprise still, that's all. What did you see? That question was enough to get the immediate attention of Reuben and Caleb. You don't have to. It's a jumble, to be honest. There was a lot hitting me all at once. I ignored the look of Caleb was giving me because this was my job and I wouldn't shy away from it. From what I saw, it seemed like there were people here who got caught up in maybe a smuggling ring. I only caught a few snippets of conversation. They never said they were smuggling anything, but in context, I can't think of what else they were talking about. What exactly did they say? Well, one was saying something like not keeping them, about not wanting to get involved in something like that was too big for them. It sounds like someone was getting cold feet about the whole thing. They also mentioned a contact in New Albion, and they mentioned a person, the ringleader, I assume. They said he has eyes everywhere. I guess they were worried about him finding out what they were up to. Maybe someone wanted to keep some relics to sell them off for personal profit. Seems like it, but what went wrong? There was a disagreement over it and a scuffle, and I think they were fighting over one of the relics and it activated on accident. Everyone was caught in it. Most of our scans had been in the other building, but we'll check the area. If it had a wide yield, then who knows how many were caught up in it. Disagreements like this aren't uncommon in this kind of situation, so what you saw tracks. How senseless, I agree. If they were talking about multiple relics, where are the rest of them? We haven't found anything yet. But we focused on the body count once we picked up the human DNA. They could have stashed them anywhere. We'll search the area thoroughly. Carefully, we don't want to set off any more of those things. We already know that. The bigger concern is the ringleader trying to spread relics around. We'll need to check if anything surfaced to New Albion. Something like this would create massive problems there. Feels like something big is happening. I don't say it much, but I guess you people are better equipped to handle this than we are. I expect a protest about that, frankly. I know when I'm in over my head. I'm glad at least someone does. Nori, wait here. I need to contact the tower. I hope you boys don't mind if we leave the cleanup to you for now. You always do. We'll be sending in a group of seasoned psychometrists to see if they can glean more details about what happened. For now, if your team finds additional relics, cordon off the area and don't touch them. You don't need to tell us twice, not after we all saw what the last one did to the people here. Caleb left me alone with the two of them after that, casting me an unreadable look as he left. I rubbed my eyes, groaning. It'll be a simple assignment, they said. Don't worry about it, they said. Are you really alright? I mean, with everything, not just today. You'd think with Caleb gone, you'd get a different answer. It's possible. You won't. The story's the same. Though I won't deny it's been a journey. Student to elite Esper in a matter of weeks. What in the world happened? Have a few hours? No, and you don't either, I guess. He sighed, shoving his hands in his pockets. Thought you were an Esper. My gut was telling me you were, but all the evidence pointed elsewhere. I'm sorry. What are you apologizing for? I don't know, not telling you, I guess. Though at the time I wasn't aware I was a queen rank anyways. At least tell me this much. What happened the day after we met? Everything. I spent a few hours. I found out I'm a queen rank Esper. I found out people were after me. I was shot at, attacked, scared out of my wits. I blew up a building, got chased in the rain, and ultimately ended up in Endgame. And now you're a fully fledged agent sent on field assignments already? I learned fast. No one learns that fast. Sometimes you have to. Ruben rubbed the back of his neck, huffing in annoyance. Hope you realize you can reach out for help if you need it. Not sure what I could do for you at this point, but thanks for the offer. I'll go back and check the team. Tell them what we know. I'm glad I could see you again, Miss Adonis. It's just Nori. Good luck, Nori. Same to you. Adonis, we're leaving. Kellner, show us where the relic is so we can go. Well, Caleb is bellowing, so I guess that's my cue to leave too. Queen's Rook, huh? He's not so bad when you get to know him. Yeah, I've heard that before. It really is true, and he tries to look out for me. It's his own cranky way. I noticed that, but he gets annoyed easily, so we shouldn't keep him waiting. After Ruben handed over the container where they had stored the relic, as Caleb and I were leaving, a new team was arriving this time to help with the cleanup. Apparently Magnus felt it was wiser to have one of our teams take control sooner rather than later. We were about halfway back to the transport depot when Magnus contacted us, pulling us into a three-way conversation for an update. Caleb did most of the talking. I felt more like I was eavesdropping on two professionals rather than participating in a debriefing. The only time I spoke at all was to tell Magnus what I'd seen in that vision. All he said to me at that point was to keep sorting through the information. Sometimes elements of psychometric events come clear later on. If anything else came to me, I was to let them know right away, though that was a given. And when we got back to the tower, it was late in the evening. Caleb walked me through filing my first mission report. By the time I got to my room again, I was flagging and exhaustion was kicking in, which meant, of course, that even after a shower and dinner, I couldn't sleep. I don't know what time it was when Caleb found me staring out at the night skyline of Brazil. He joined me wordlessly by the window and stood with me for a few minutes before holding out a hand. Come on. You'll never relax standing here in the dark alone. Let's walk. I set my hand in his without thinking. Yeah, I'd like that. His hand enveloped mine, and he led me on into the hall. I figured we'd be going down to the garden, so I wasn't surprised that was where he took me. Couldn't help that it was his favorite spot. It didn't hit me until we started down the usual winding path, and Caleb had never let go of my hand. I expected to see you wandering around here when I came down earlier. Oh, suddenly conscious of the heat from the palm and the way his fingers loosely wrapped around mine, I found I couldn't even look at him. Is he saying he came looking for me while I didn't show up? Figured you wouldn't be able to sleep. You already know me so well. You're not hard to figure out. Why does that sound like an insult? He smirked at me, releasing my hand so he could flick my forehead instead. I was left to wonder if the hand thing had been intentional or not. Maybe it is. I guess I should be used to your insults by now. He tipped his head back, a playful grin coming to his lips. And maybe it isn't. You're so irritating sometimes. Want me to take you back to that detective so he can whisk you back to your old life, where I'm sure you received endless praise for everything you did? I worked hard for any praise I got. Thank you very much. Well, I guess you wouldn't have gotten as far as you did if you didn't. You worked too hard here. Somehow we found our way at the same bench as last time. If you're struggling to get the images from earlier out of your head, Sasuke can give you something to relax. No, I'm okay. I've seen dead bodies before. During school, mummified corpses aren't pretty either, you know. You've seen dead bodies from what you said earlier. This time you saw them dying. Given what was left of them, it was probably... I'm fine. A voice rose unexpectedly, and I realized it was all too clear I wasn't as fine as I was trying to be. I breathed out, closing my eyes. I'm fine. I don't want to talk about it. I didn't mean to touch a nerve. I wanted to know if you were alright. I'm okay. He placed his hands on my shoulders, giving me a serious look. You don't have to be okay, Nori. No one whose opinion matters expects you to always be okay. I know that. I'm scared. If I let myself not be okay, even once, I'll lose it. It's not good to bottle things up. Speaking from experience, I am, yes. Look, I get what you're trying to say, but I'm telling you, I know when to blow off steam and to talk to people. You need to learn the same thing. No one's too much and do something about it. People like us can afford to let stuff build until it boils over, right? Got it? I really am okay. I just don't want to see that image again, that's all. Not this late at night and before bed. I've been trying to keep my mind off of it. Then I'm sorry for bringing it up. No, I'm sorry for getting upset. I guess I haven't found a good way to decompress yet. I didn't even realize how much it was weighing on me until you brought it up. About what happened today, I should have been more careful. I didn't think you'd get hit with something that strong. It wasn't your fault. You were against me, even going on this assignment. Being against it didn't do much, did it? It really bothered him. The feeling of powerlessness, didn't it? It bothered him. And then he would get angry because he knew he couldn't do anything about it. I should have just made you stay in the car. You can't always leave me in the car. I appreciate that everyone wants to look out for me, but I'm not fragile. I know, that's what worries me. What did that mean? Caleb set a hand on my head, just resting it there for a moment. He frowned, sliding his hand through my hair to rest just briefly on my cheek, letting his thumbs skim across before he pulled it away. A tender gesture I didn't quite expect from him, and I suddenly remembered what happened earlier in the day when we had been in that building alone. My heart started pounding against my ribs, and I had to look away from him, not wanting him to see whatever expression I was making in that moment. Things were changing between us. It was terrifying and thrilling. I was afraid to continue, but I didn't want to stop. There was a part of me that wanted to take his hand and press it to my cheek, but to bury my face against him and let the scent and the sound of his heart wash away the stress and bad thoughts. That frightened me, but fear didn't lessen the desire to do it. It took a great deal of self-control to keep my hands in my lap. You did okay today. His voice was soft when he finally spoke, maybe a little tired. I don't think you're ready for anything harder, but today you did okay. That almost sounds like a compliment. It is a compliment. You sound dubious. He gave the back of my neck a squeeze. I squirmed away from him, chuckling softly. I expected him to call me in pain again, but this time he didn't. We sat together for a while before he walked me to my room. I slept better than I had in a while, either because I was tired or Caleb just finally helped me calm down. It was a nice reprieve before I was completely out, and I thought I should thank him. Probably. Alright, y'all. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next